Hi everyone, and welcome to the channel. Zach D Productions here, and I'm here for an album review for you guys. Now, this is not going to be a long review or anything. I do want to make this a rather quick one. Now, this is for a new 2021 release, and I'm sure some of you are probably looking at the title right now very confused and also very surprised. But yes, guys, you're reading the title right. I am talking about Spiritbox in this video, and I'm going to be reviewing the new album from Spiritbox, Eternal Blue. Now, there's actually a few reasons why I wanted to listen to this album. For one, I have been noticing a lot of people giving this album a lot of hype. Some people that I know that have really been enjoying the album, and you know, I was like, I'll check it out sometime, and you know, I did. You know, I obviously listened to it recently, and also I wanted to check it out because I guess I just wanted to expand my horizons musically, I guess. Because you guys know that I'm not really into a lot of bands that came out within the last few years or so. I'm not really into a lot of new bands, I guess. So I guess I kind of wanted to just give bands of the last decade a chance, such as Spiritbox, because at least according to Wikipedia, they've been around since 2016, and yeah, that is kind of recent for my taste, I guess. Not really a fan of a lot of bands that have been around for that long, you know. So I was like, you know, I'll see if this generation of music actually, you know, will have more to offer for me. Now, of course, there are some bands that I do like from the last decade. Obviously, it's not many, because if you know me well enough, a lot of the bands that I'm into have been around for decades. But regardless, I decided to give Spiritbox a chance nonetheless. Now, before I actually heard the whole album, I have heard some snippets, you know, a few seconds of certain songs from the album, and I will admit, I was definitely intrigued and liked what I was hearing to some extent. And that's another reason why I was interested in checking out this album. So I did finally check out the album recently, and I will have to say that this album is kind of a mixed bag for me. Now, I didn't expect myself to love it or anything, but I was really hoping that this album would, you know, really make me a fan of this band. But unfortunately, the album isn't enough to make me a fan of the band. The album, again, is kind of a mixed bag for me. But don't get me wrong, there's definitely things that I really do like about it. There definitely is, such as the vocals. I believe the vocalist's name is Courtney LaPlante, if I got the name right. I do think she has a very good voice, and she sounds very good on this album and everything like that. And you know, I do think that, you know, the vocals where she's just, you know, singing, I think those are really the moments that really shine on this album. To me, I think those are the best moments on this album, and I do think that her singing voice is probably the best thing about this album. Now, as far as negatives go, I definitely am not a fan of the screaming on this album. I mean, that's a pretty big deal for me from this album. That's really one of the main things that really dragged this album down. I think if this album just had, you know, her singing voice, this album, I probably would have liked it a lot more, actually. But I am not a big fan of the screaming on this album, you know, the scream vocals on this album. I mean, to me, they kind of just sound like a typical 2010s metalcore band that was, you know, made for high schoolers or something, you know. That's kind of what I take from it anyways. I mean, you can agree, you can disagree with me on that, but of course, also according to Wikipedia, they do fall under the metalcore genre. And some of these songs, I don't know if I would consider to be metalcore. Like I said, like the songs where it, you know, it's just her singing and it's very melodic. And those moments and those songs really do stand out. I do want to talk about a few favorites of mine, or at least mention a couple favorites of mine. The title track would definitely be one of my favorites. I think The Summit is a very good song, maybe my favorites, or one of my favorites on the album. And also Secret Garden, also a standout track for me. That's a very good song that has nice melodies and things like that. But yeah, again, the melodic moments, they really do shine on this album, and again, it's just the scream vocals I'm not really too big of a fan of. And that might sound surprising that it's the scream vocals that are the biggest problem for me, especially for those who have been following my channel for a long time, because back in the early days of this channel, most of the bands that I listened to had scream vocals. But again, I think when it comes to the good moments on this album, I think those moments are really good. They're really standout moments for sure. But again, man, it's just the harsh vocals, the scream vocals that don't really do much for me. Now, I'm not going to discredit the talent behind the use of harsh vocals on this album, but they're just not for me, all right? But, you know, Courtney's vocals, they're really good on this album, and that's really the standout to me. That's really the standout. Now, as far as instrumentation and sound-wise is concerned, I think the production is pretty good on this album. This album does have some theatrics to it, which I do find kind of intriguing. I mean, the use of all the instrumentation and just the different sounds that you hear, all of that sounds very intriguing as well, but yeah, again, kind of a mixed bag. There's some moments on this album that I do find to be kind of edgy, you know, which is kind of expected with, you know, a band that's only been around for 5 years, you know. Of course, you know, you're going to get some edgy stuff, but all in all, I can't say it's bad. It's not a bad album. I do like it to some extent. Obviously, I'm not in love with it. Like I said, there's moments that I do like, but there's moments that I really don't like. There's moments that I think that really do drag the album down, and then I think that there's, of course, some standout moments. So as a score, I'll probably have to give this album a 6 out of 10. Definitely not a bad album. It's definitely far from perfect. It's definitely far from the best album of the year or anything. You know, I'm sure some people might disagree with me on that, and that's okay. But that's just my opinion, though. Not a bad album, but just not really anything that I could see myself being a fan of, maybe other than the exception of a few songs. Because I think that the songs that I liked from this album, I do really like. So that's my review. That's my review for Eternal Blue by Spiritbox. Let me know what you guys think. Have you heard this album? Do you agree with my opinion? Did you like this album? Do you not like it? Feel free to let me know your thoughts. So with that being said, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.